Yo, what's up everybody? Jumpin' here. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my Asari Duelist build on Mass Effect Andromeda. Now I will say that she is a really fun melee build if you want to try her that way, but I also think that you could probably shoot enemies and set her build up a little bit differently if you want to just run around and shoot enemies, and I think that would also be really good. But the melee build is just a lot of fun because she is a katana wielding alpha female, and that's pretty fucking dope, I gotta be honest. Now, is she the best melee build? I don't really think so. At first I was thinking maybe she was because her melee is extremely powerful, but it's not powerful enough. It's just like a little bit off. If they would increase the damage in the melee just slightly, you would be able to charge and then one-shot with your melee minion level enemies like raiders and stuff like that. You currently cannot do that with this build unless you enhance your strength with consumables. That's the only way to really one-shot those small enemies, and I think that you should always be able to one-shot them with her melee because her melee is so fucking slow. But the other melee builds that are really good generally will have a faster melee, like the Human Vanguard or the Angara Avenger. Their melee builds are really good because they can melee so fast. But let's go ahead and talk about the weapon now. I use the Talon. The main reason I use it is just for the melee attachment. Now you can also use a shotgun, but in my personal opinion, the Talon is just better because it's better to shoot with. I don't like any of the shotguns in this game, and sometimes you will have to shoot the enemies, so I definitely prefer the Talon. The shotgun attachment will give you only 4% more melee damage, so it's not going to make and break anything. It's not like fucking crazy overpowered compared to the pistol. The pistol one is 29% and the shotgun one is 33%, so I definitely prefer the Talon over any shotgun in this game. I'm also using the Juggernaut shield, which is a must for any melee build. 75% more melee, that's awesome. Now, like I was saying before, you definitely want to use a consumable if you're going to play on gold. If you play on silver or bronze, you will one-shot pretty much all normal enemies, and it's really, really fun. But if you play on gold, you need like at least 30% more melee damage to one-shot a lot of the raiders and smaller minion level enemies. So you charge, you melee, you charge, you melee, and you'll one-shot all those enemies. And it's really awesome. I think that's the way it should be, but maybe in the future they will either lower the enemy's health slightly or they will go ahead and increase her melee damage, because I think that she should be able to do that. Now, moving on to the build, you guys have to remember she is a ultra rare class, so it's going to take forever to max her out, unfortunately, and we do not have a lot of points to play with. So this is what I go for her melee build. I leave Lance at 1 and I leave Backlash at 1. If I could totally max out her build, I probably would either get Backlash or Lance. I would have to think about it, but I think Lance would be actually pretty fucking good with this build. But let's go ahead and talk about what we got. So for charge, I go for damage and force. I definitely like radius a lot, but damage and force is like needed because you want to one-shot with your melee those small enemies. So the more damage you can do with your charge, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to then melee and kill an enemy. So I definitely prefer the force and the damage. And also you can stun the fuck out of the enemies when you actually charge, so that's really nice. Next up is going to be weapons and melee. This is obvious. You definitely want this. You charge and melee. You get the idea. And then finally, recharge speed. The reason why you want this over Bastion is because you want to charge melee, and you want to do it as fast as possible. Now, Bastion is really good, but I definitely prefer Shock Trooper for this build. Now, moving on to offensive biotics, we're going to go for force and also damage. We're doing this once again to make our charge do more damage because we want to then melee and kill enemies. Now, if you want to go for the power recharge speed, by all means, go for it. I'm sure it's really, really good. But I want to be able to kill those raiders and other smaller enemies with one melee after my charge. Moving on, we're going to go for weapons and melee. Obviously, it increases melee damage. That's great. And then finally, this perk is fucking awesome. You get 50% more melee damage and 15% more force. Now that's really good because the whole idea of the build is we're going to use a power and we're going to melee. And we're just going to keep doing that non-stop. So you only get the bonus for 3 seconds, but any unarmored or unshielded enemy will be knocked on the ground after the melee. And that will just totally fuck them at that point. And if they're not dead, you can just shoot them. And that is really, really nice. I really do like this perk a lot. Now moving on to barrier, we're going to go for maximum shields. Now I was doing a little bit of testing and I pretty much was able to determine that this does have potential, because when you charge with this build, you will stun the enemy and then you melee, and as you melee, you have a lot of iframes and she's kind of like invincible. So you're not going to be taking any damage, and in that time frame, your shields can just start to naturally recharge, and this definitely helps with that. So I do think that this has potential, but overall, I still want to go for the maximum shields just because it will help you out more. Moving on, we're going to go for Barrier Drain. This is an amazing perk. This is one of the best things the Human Vanguard gets, because you can restore your shield with melee. But you also get 50% more melee damage, which is of course really nice for this build. Now this perk is absolutely way better on the Human Vanguard, because the Human Vanguard can punch a lot faster. So the whole shield thing is not like super useful with this build because the melee is so slow, but the melee damage is really good. And of course, the shield thing is also good for this build. It's always good. And finally, we're going to get Saving Barrier, which is by far one of the best perks in this game. I love it a lot. So I definitely do think that you should go for this, because it will save your life over and over again. One last thing I will say, if you go for this, your health's going to also regenerate a lot faster, which can also help with Saving Barrier. So if you want to combine those two perks together, they do actually have some synergy. So just keep that in mind. Alrighty guys, so that's going to pretty much do it for the build. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the gameplay. It's going to be on gold, and I'm going to be one-shotting a lot of enemies. But the main reason for that is because in this gameplay, I'm going to be using the Strength Enhancer 4. And unfortunately, if you're not using a really powerful Strength Enhancer, you're not going to be doing as much damage. But it is still a really fun melee build. Alrighty guys, this is going to be the gameplay, and it's going to be on gold, but I really do feel like she's just way more fun to play maybe on silver, because the biggest bummer is that when you're fighting against the little minion enemies, you do not actually kill them with one melee. Even if you go for nothing but melee damage on this build, you will not kill them on gold with one melee immediately after a charge. So that is really stupid. I just feel like her melee should be able to kill at least the little minion guys. Now obviously anything with a shield like a sharpshooter or an armored target, yeah, it should take at least 2 melees, maybe 3. But when it comes to those little tiny guys like the raiders, I really feel like they should be able to be killed by just simply going ahead and charging and meleeing. So that's my biggest beef with her. And see, the reason why I don't think she's the best melee build, although I think she's a really fun build, there's no doubt about it. It's just so awesome using the Asari sword. I love it to death. But the problem is that the Human Vanguard, his melee is so fast. Now, his melee can be interrupted. Now, one thing that I have noticed with her, it just seems like her melee cannot really be interrupted. So that's another really great perk of her melee over other melees, is that it just cannot be interrupted. But what I've noticed is that the Human Vanguard can generally charge in and then do maybe 2 really quick melees, and then the little basic minion enemy is dead from that. Where with her, she has to charge in, do a melee, and then maybe shoot the enemy or do another melee, and it's a total bitch. Another thing about melee in this game I wanted to bring up, I really feel like they should increase the AoE attack for when you jump in the air. Not the damage on it necessarily, but just the fucking AoE range of it. Because it just feels very, like, shitty sometimes. I feel like it should be a little bit like Nova, where if they're behind cover, you should be able to actually hit them. That would be pretty cool. And besides that, it just needs a little bit more range. I can't tell you how many times I've jumped up in the air, and I'm so freaking close to the enemies, and I drop down on them, and nothing happens. And you're like, man, that's fucking lame. And then you have, like, a lot of recovery frames for that. And when you do that, you can be killed so easily if you're not careful. So you really got to watch out for that. Now, another thing you can do with this build, besides just charge melee, you can also lance melee. And that actually does work as well. But charge is a little bit stronger with this build than lance is currently. But of course, as the cart maxes out, I'll probably go for lance. And once I have like a full maxed out lance, I feel like it will definitely do a decent amount of damage. And at that point, you probably could get away with using like lance and then using a melee, and you'll kill pretty much all the basic enemies one hit with that. So that would be a really good combo. But obviously you definitely want charge with this build because she's a vanguard. She's meant to charge in and then melee enemies. You can also design her for guns, and I'm sure that's really good. But I really don't think you guys probably wanted to see a gun vanguard build, just because I haven't done a melee build yet for a vanguard, and I just feel like this would be probably the most fun one to do. although I just don't think it's the best. I also think that the Angara Avenger is another excellent melee build. Now, when I do his build, which will be coming up pretty soon here, because next will be the Krogan Gladiator, and then after that, I'm going to do the Angara Avenger. The Angara Avenger, I personally feel like is better if you use guns, because his build is just extremely overpowered. But his melee is also really good, and Avenger Strike actually does benefit from melee damage, so that's really awesome as well. So with his build, you pretty much have two options, melee or guns. And I'm going to go ahead and do guns, because I'm doing this build now with the melee. So anyway, I love this build. I think it's a lot of fun to play, but I will say this. I'm just not a big fan of melee in general in this game. Now, I think it's fine. I know a lot of people complain about the fact you can't charge up your melee, and I think that that would be something that would be pretty cool if they could somehow introduce like a light melee and then a heavy melee. Maybe make her like little sword hit the heavy melee, and her light melee could be like a really fast sword hit that you could do multiple times. That would be really fucking cool. But I don't know if they're gonna do that or not. I don't know why they decided to take away the heavy melee and the light melee. And also, like, what the fuck is going on as well with the fact that we can't grab enemies behind cover? Like, that just seems a little bit strange that they took that away. Now, one thing I will also say that kind of bugs me about this build, that actually just really pisses me off in general, I do not like the fact that charge is on the L1 R1 fucking button. That's really stupid. I can't tell you how many times, and you'll probably see it in the gameplay, I accidentally will use backlash, and then I'll use fucking lance, and then I charge, because I'm trying to just charge, but instead I'm like spamming these buttons, and I'm not really getting anything out of that. So that's pretty fucking funny when it happens, but it does actually happen a lot, so just have to be aware of that. Unfortunately, like I said, they put the fucking charge on such a stupid button. I just wish it would be L1. All the other Vanguards, they all have like L1. Why is hers different? I don't really get it. But that's pretty much it, honestly, when it comes to like the melee and stuff. There's really not much else to talk about when it comes to that, because it's pretty simple build. You just want to charge in and melee. The best thing about it primarily is the fact that it will not be interrupted, and you're also invincible as you do it. And that will buy you a lot of time for your charge to actually come back. So normally it's like maybe like a second or a second and a half before your charge will actually come back after you do your melee. So you can just keep doing it. And of course, once you charge, you get all of these benefits. You get a ton of melee benefits. So it's extremely good for that. Now, what's really crazy is that this melee does not one-shot after a charge. You get 207% more melee damage just from the build after using charge. And that's not even counting the Juggernaut shield and also the melee attachment. So it's 307% if you combine everything together. Now, another thing I really wanted to talk about in this video, I would really appreciate if you guys can hit me up on PS4. My PSN is Jumpin' Production, just like my YouTube name, but without an S. So that's the only difference. But yeah, send me a friend request and then go ahead and send me a message. I definitely would prefer it if you're going to send me a friend request. Also send me a message alongside it to say, hey, Jumpin', I would like to play sometime. I don't care what your skill level is. I don't care what your Apex rating is. I don't care what your level of your build is. If you want to play, you can play. I don't really like playing with randoms. It's just is something I've never been into. Around the end of Mass Effect 3, I started playing with randoms, and I was able to really see like how bad it was. But in this game, I want to not play with randoms, and I'm sure a lot of people don't want to play with randoms. If you guys want to play with me on PS4, by all means, go ahead and add me, send me a message, and I will definitely probably invite you. Maybe not right away, because I might be in a full game. But later on down the line, if I have that message, I will invite you. See, the problem is, if you add me as a friend, and I do not invite you, it's probably because I have like well over 1,000 friends. So if I scroll through that massive list, it takes forever for it to load. And then I have to look for people playing Mass Effect. You might be playing campaign, and I might think you don't want to play multiplayer. So there's a lot of factors here. Or maybe you're on another game, and you'll play Mass Effect, but you don't really want to play it right that moment. But if I was to message you or invite you, then you would be down to come and play. So just be sure to message me if you want to play. I'm totally down with that. And I will go ahead and then invite you later on or right away if I need someone. Because I always need people to play with. That's just something that is happening. I have about 20 people right now that I play with on PS4. And I kind of swap between those people. But a lot of times, nobody's on. And I want to play, I want to grind, I want to do some gold, and I don't care about the skill level of the person I'm playing with. I don't care about what their build level is. I don't care about their apex rating. Nothing. Doesn't matter. Just if you want to play, hit me up and I will definitely invite you. So that's something I just wanted to say real quick, because I've been having this struggle lately that I look through my giant list and I see nobody playing for real. And the people that are playing, they're busy or they're doing campaign. They don't really want to play multiplayer. So if you guys want to play with me, and I know a lot of people probably do, then go ahead, just add me. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Now, I decided to pretty much do all of the ultra rare classes in a row. The only one I'm not going to probably do is that stupid human. Now, I do feel like she has a lot of potential, and I have a good idea for what I want to do for her build, but right now I just don't have her. And it's really weird. Like, there's only a couple things I don't have that are ultra rare. And one is the human Kineticus. The other one is like the N7 Piranha. Like, what the fuck, man? Can I get the goddamn Piranha? I would love to get that gun. But that's one of the only guns I don't have. I have grinded so much in this game. It's ridiculous. I've actually been able to get almost every rare weapon to 10. And that takes a lot. I already talked about that in another video. If you want to max out all the rare builds and you want to max out all the rare weapons, it's like 280 fucking games of gold you have to play. Which is fucking kind of ridiculous, because each gold match can take at least 15 minutes, and sometimes it can take 20 minutes depending on what's happening and all that type of good stuff. So yeah, I've done a lot of grinding. I'm down to about maybe 15 at this point. I just need 15 more gold matches and I have everything maxed out. So fun with guns will be coming, and I think for the first one I'll probably do the Maddock, just because I wanted to really bitch about that gun in that video, because I already talked about it, how it's really stupid how they buffed it, or they fixed it. They didn't even buff it, they fixed it. And when they fixed it, they're like, oh, I guess it's kind of a good gun now. We can't have that. Let's go ahead and nerf it and make it shit again. So I really wanted to bitch about that stupid ass gun, but if you guys want to see something else, you just don't really want me to bitch about a gun in the first video, you can go ahead and recommend it in this video as well. So if there's any gun you're thinking of, go ahead and let me know, and I'll probably have it to 10 pretty soon here, because almost everything's at 10 already, and only a couple guns are not, like my fucking Talent. What the hell, BioWare? Why is it the gun I love the most and the gun I use the most, I can't get to 10? It's like gonna be my last gun I get to 10, I swear to God. But that's RNG, and it's so fucking stupid. It's just the way it is. But that's pretty much it for all that. Let me go ahead and talk a little bit more about the Asari Duelist. She's a lot of fun to play, there's no doubt about it. The melee build is great. Now, I personally feel like because of some of the problems with the damage, I just don't like the fact that when I charge into a minion, unless I'm using like a really powerful strength enhancer, I'm not going to one-shot that minion. I feel like if I was going to play her again in the future, I would probably go ahead and respec her for guns. But that's just because I am not a big fan of melee in general. But overall, it is really fun. Although I did get really sick of it by the time I got it to level 20, let me tell you. Like, literally, playing her, like, so much, because I hate how long it takes to level up. It can take fucking forever. And every time I get to level 20, I'm always, like, super sick of that build. The Krogan Gladiator was the fucking worst build to actually level up. I hate it doing that. That motherfucker is so squishy. It's ridiculous. And I just don't think he's all that great, or really she. I don't think that she's all that great in general, but hey, I mean, I have a really good idea for her I'm going to show off, and I'm sure you guys are going to get a kick out of it, but it's not something that you can always do unless you have a team to always play with, and then you can have some fun with it. But if you are playing with randoms, you're probably not going to want to use that build I'm going to show. But I'll talk about an alternative build as well that you can do that is at least somewhat viable for gold. But I don't know, guys. It's kind of a bitch. Anyway, guys, that's going to pretty much do it for this video. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, will you please like the video for me? Be sure to subscribe. And I really do hope that everyone has a very nice day. And peace. So
yes, you can! Just do it! If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.